All right. I'm getting a lot of texts that say I do not have sound. All right. Oh. I'm getting a lot of texts that say I do not have. So clearly my sound is back. All right, everyone. I'm back. I'm here. I said a bunch of amazing stuff in the first 6 minutes, and you missed all of it. I'm sorry I gave away like the winning lottery ticket numbers. Like it was a really moving 6 minutes of a presentation. So I'm going to try to do it again, but I can't make any promises. So thank you for bearing with me on that little 6-minute soundless intro. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about using Google Classroom for distance learning, especially during this time of building closures. So we'll look at the features that you should know, integrations, tips for efficiency and engagement, and more. And we're going to do all of that in under a half hour. So if you don't know, I am Alicia DeCepola, Google for Education Certified Trainer and Millville Public Schools Digital Literacy and Learning Specialist. I've checked out your requests on our Jamboard for topics and skills that you want me to cover, and I promise I will cover all 2 of them. If something else comes up during this presentation, just add it to the chat section. It's just to the right of the video on YouTube. If I see it, I'll try to address it, or maybe someone else can respond in the chat section to help you out. So before we dive in, and I cannot stress this enough, give yourself some grace, give your students some grace, give their families some grace. That's why I put Oprah up here. You get grace, you get grace, everybody gets grace. This is a global pandemic. We're in brand new territory and we had no time to prepare for it. We don't know what's happening tomorrow, let alone next month. It's truly a wild time. Also, we're realizing it's not just the kids or adults that come from what we typically considered an unstable home situation that are experiencing fragility right now. So truly give yourself and everyone around you some grace, and then give them a little bit more. And then you can have them log on to Google Classroom. So let's take a look at Google Classroom before I jump in. Okay, someone can hear me, someone can't see anything. Can everyone hear me and see my screen? I'm throwing that in the chat. If someone could just let me know if you can see my screen and if you can hear me, that would be wonderful. I'm not sure why I'm having problems. I did a test run yesterday. Okay, thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Janet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my Google Classroom. I'm going to assume you have Google Classroom created and that you have some kids in there. I do want to mention here, though, that most parents, especially those who are not educators, of course, don't know how to use Google Classroom. So if you weren't actively using Classroom all school year, you also have to consider that students have to learn how to use this tool as well, just like you're learning how to use it. So if you haven't already, the first thing that you need to do is to make sure all students are comfortable using this. I put a link at the beginning of this presentation and I'll share it again, but it's going to have all the resources you need that I'm going to cover in this training. I honestly didn't finish it because my 2 kids were out of control today as usual, but I will have it done when they nap today. And then I'll make sure I include every single thing I reference in this presentation. So I typically say for educators that are learning G Suite to start with Google Drive. It's like the mothership, and you're going to see why as I start navigating Classroom. So Google Drive and Google Classroom work together. I'm going to open my Drive and I'm going to scroll down a little bit and you'll see there's a folder called Classroom. If I click on this, I did not create this folder. This was created by Google and it just pulls in all of my classroom information. So every single one of these folders is a separate classroom. And if I open up one of these folders, I can see all of my assignments or all of my templates and my quizzes. I can see them here as well. So for example, here's an assignment. I can open it up and I can view it here. So you should know that everything you're doing in Classroom is being logged on Google Drive. Now, with that being said, you have the ability to create templates and interactive activities all through Drive and push them out to Classroom. So when we first had to make this shift, and actually I say this all the time, so this is not unique to our whole remote learning adventure, I constantly say, like, don't overtool yourself or the kids. Like, if you're going to start with something in ed tech, I would start with Google tools and I would start with Drive and Classroom, and then you can build your portfolio from there. But right now, there's so many ed tech companies offering like free tools. And most of them are just temporary. They expire in June or May or July or any other month. And the problem is, if you get your kids using that, it's going to take obviously a long time. There's a learning curve. And then what happens when it costs money, because that's money that we probably don't have to pay for it. And on top of that, like, it's very confusing for the students and for their parents and guardians to try to help them figure all of this out. So it's really helpful if you just have one or two tools that you use really well and you deliver your content efficiently. That would be really helpful. So something that I did during this time, and I would recommend for you too, is I made a separate folder just for this time. So that way I can organize things that I need to use while we're engaged in remote learning. So the reason I did this was because when I start to pull in assignments and stuff in Classroom, you'll see that it does link to my Google Drive, and I want to make sure that I can just pull things over immediately and it's very simple to use. So with that being said, let me jump to something that I know you're probably all here to talk about. So let's talk about Google Meet. So first, I should tell you that the Digital Learning Ambassadors and I are going to be doing a panel next Wednesday, April 29th, just dedicated to Google Meet. So we're going to talk about best practices, how to do absolutely everything in Meet, give you some tips, share other resources. So today, I'm specifically going to talk about the new Meet integration with Classroom. We spent a lot of time debating the best way to do this, just based on like pending updates and current experiences. And I think the best way to handle this now is how my colleague Ashley Bartholomew does it. It's going to be on the resource doc. I'll share it. I promise I'll link that tutorial video there. So you're going to make the Classroom Meet link viewable only when it's time for the meeting. So this will ensure you can be the first person in the room and have that host status. It also makes it so kids can't access the link at other times. So things are constantly changing and updating, especially during this time. But based on everything that we've researched and tried, for example, before spring break, our Google admin followed the steps to stop the kids from starting meetings, but then ended up blocking them from using Hangouts, which a lot of teachers had a problem with. So the digital learning team just feels like this is probably your best bet at this time, just from a management standpoint. And I'm going to walk you through it now. So this is my classroom, my training classroom. In the upper right-hand area of my screen, I'm going to click that little gear icon. That's my settings. And when you scroll down, you'll see that little camera for Meet. So this was the new integration that just came out due to this entire experience. Also, I'll just mention it. I know I've mentioned it about 7,000 times, but I truly think Google's Teach from Home Hub with all their resources is a really great resource for teachers. And I would definitely head there if you're interested in learning more. So here's a couple things you can do. Where it says visible to students, if you click on that little ball, so it'll, I guess, turn a little bit of a darker gray, or whatever your theme is, it'll light up. So once I make it visible to students, I can click Save. And then I can see that my link is located right over here on my header. Now, here's the thing. If you keep it visible to your students just nonstop, they can click on it and go in and out. Now, if you're the first person in a meeting, you are the host of that meeting. You have the ability to mute people. I mean, maybe you do, but you probably don't want your kids to just jump in and out at 2 a.m. Not saying that they will, but stranger things have happened. So something that Ashley said that she does, and I really like this too, because initially I was just doing them through a Google Calendar. But if you go to settings and you go down to Meet, if you just keep this off, and then let's say you have a scheduled meeting, I don't know, every Friday at 2 p.m., which that's actually a terrible time to do it, but just in case, maybe you have a scheduled meeting at that time, you can come here at 1:55, then make it visible and save it, and you only have it visible during the times of the actual meetings. All right, and this drop-down menu right here, if you click drop-down, you can copy this link, and maybe there's like a special area teacher who wants to join your meeting that day. Like maybe you're a 5th grade teacher and your gym teacher says that they really want to come and do a warm up with your kids. You can copy it and just send it in an email, because I know especially these special area teachers, like you guys have so many kids. You have so many kids, and I know you want to reach all of them, but it's probably very overwhelming to have 75,000 Google Classrooms happening right now. We want to make sure the kids are getting all of their content as efficiently as possible. So that might be a really helpful thing to kind of involve the special area teachers or special guests. Maybe you want to send it to your principal, your VP, your guidance counselor, whoever. You can also click this drop-down menu and reset it. So you could reset this link for every single meeting if you wanted to. That's up to you. And then when you're done your meeting, you could, of course, turn it off and click save. And then the link will no longer be at the top so kids can't go in and out. Speaking of people going in and out, my class code, we know how kids join their class codes. They go to Google Classroom and then they enter the code at the top of the page. They click the plus sign and join and type our code. So something that I would do if all of my students are in my classroom, I would turn my code off. So come to this little settings icon. And when I come to general class code, I can click disable. So that means no one else will be able to join my class code. Now, I've heard of some people letting parents join their classes. While that's up to you, let me tell you why I don't recommend it. Number one, it's going to get pretty messy when your kids are handing in assignments and stuff if you start going to that. But also, like if you're doing any kind of collaboration, so for example, maybe you're going to use a Google Jamboard like this and have them throw up ideas and stuff, you're going to have a whole group of people that are not students that have access to your classroom. So I don't recommend that. I don't recommend sharing your class code publicly. I just think security is really important. And one thing you can do with parents is give them access to Guardian Summaries. So if you look at this right here, Guardian Summaries, you can turn this on and it will give them a summary of what they did that week. So for example, it'll say, hey, Justin has this due on Friday, they have a test on Saturday, or whatever else. And I can add it if I want to. I'm not going to. You can see an example here, and that'll show you how it looks in their email when they receive it. So I'm going to keep this disabled. Another thing in settings that you might want to consider is your stream. You might not want everyone to comment. And the reason why is you're probably not sitting, I mean, maybe you are, but you're probably not sitting on your computer checking every single comment of every single day. So I usually keep it to only teachers can post or comment. And then if we do something collaborative, so like I mentioned, that Google Jamboard, that's something that they do have the ability to engage. And during our Google Meets, that's when they have the time to communicate and collaborate. So when they have the access to comment, you open yourself up to, hey, what's up? Hi, yo, yo, yo. I always give the example of one teacher I was working with, like they had a kid who posted 75 pictures of SpongeBob one day in their stream. And I'm not sure why or the meaning behind it, but like that's just the kind of stuff you don't need. We don't need to make it messier. We want to keep it as efficient as we possibly can. All right. Oh, I just saw in the chat that Ashley Bartholomew is here and she will take any questions that you guys have. She's one of our digital learning ambassadors and she's excellent. I'm probably going to talk about her a few more times. So it will be all good since I know that you're here. So I'm going to go back to my training classroom. And let's keep chatting. So one of my favorite things that I've seen people do during this time, if I go to my Classwork tab, this is how I can deliver content and organize information. So instead of doing it like we would do it during the school year, so for example, I might tag things with topics like writing, social studies, science, or anything else in between. Instead of doing that, you could organize it by week, or maybe you have another way you'd like to do it. This will just help you and the students stay a little bit more organized. And then if a parent is working with their child, they can see exactly what's expected each week. And it kind of helps you just stay on track and helps the kids stay on track too, because this is a very overwhelming time for all of us. And also everything I've been reading during this time says to give all of the activities for the week just at the start of the week. We know what's expected. We can lay it out. I mentioned before how families who have not experienced instability before are experiencing it. Like even maybe there's a family that has two parents at home, but they're both working in healthcare and the seventh grader is taking care of the kindergartner. And it really starts to get very sticky when we think about things like what the kids are responsible for and how they have to organize their own schedule. So it's really important that we actually are taking the time to do as much as we can to deliver content very clearly. So here's how I make my topics. You can go to create, this create button at the top, and then create a topic right here. And now this is where you add your topic. So my week 4, let's say it was April 6th to the 9th. I can add that topic. So now here's my topic right here. So now when I add any other content, if I click create, I can add an assignment, a quiz assignment, question, material. So that's just like a link or a doc or something. I can reuse a previous post. I can tag those things specifically for that topic. So here's my week of April 6th to the 9th. That's, oh, I forgot to put week 4. I'm going to click on those 3 stacked dots and rename it. So now when I go to create an assignment, I can go to create, assignment. Remember what I told you before. Over here on the right, see where it says topics? We can click topics and then I can select the week that I want it to appear under, or maybe you don't want it listed as weeks, that's up to you. Grading varies so much per teacher, per school, per district, per state, per country, wherever you are. I'm not sure what your plans are for grading or if you're planning on using Google Classroom for grading, but for me, something you can do is just click this drop-down menu and click on graded, or you can change, instead of doing 100, you could do like a 10 or even just a 1. I'm sorry, a 1. So a 1 meaning completed, or like efficient. Also over here on the right, when we're making an assignment, we can customize who's getting the assignment. So I can check off all of my classes if I want to, or I can just keep it that one class, and I can personalize it even further and give these activities to specific students. So next to the name of my class, it says all students. If I click the drop-down menu, I can check off specific students. Like let's say Ashley, Justin, and Jennifer, they're done everything and I want them to have some extra activities. I can only send this to them so as to not overwhelm the other kids and parents, and just keep everybody engaged and keep everyone appropriately engaged, and make sure that I'm serving all the students individually. So every time we're on a different screen or we're doing something in Google Classroom, you'll see the same icons over and over and over again. You'll see this little paperclip for add, and you'll see this plus sign for create. Now, I do want to mention something here. I'm not sure how you feel. This is a total preference, but if you click create, you can click and create a new doc, slide, form, whatever, directly in Google Classroom. I personally don't like to do this. I like to set everything up in advance in my Google Drive, and then I can just click and drag things over from there. I just prefer to organize it myself and not have it in my classroom folder, but this is a total preference choice. So if you want to start from scratch, this is where you create something. I'm going to click add. So if you go to add, you can add a link to something, you can add a file, you can add a YouTube video. You can also just copy and paste your links in the instructions too. I'm going to click Google Drive, and I'll show you how that looks. So I'm going to my Google Drive right now. Now, this is all of the things that I've recently accessed. So maybe I want to give people access to this Home Learning Hub document. Actually, no, that's a bad idea. Let me do something else. I'll give them access to this one. All right, so I chose this document and I'm going to click add. Now, this is a question I've gotten a lot, and I've talked about it a lot, but I guess I'm going to talk about it one more time. So to the right of my doc, see this drop-down menu? It says students can view file. If we click this drop-down menu, the other options are students can edit file and make a copy for each student. Now, if your students edit the file, that means every single student is editing the same exact file. You probably don't want that to happen. Although I have had some people asking about doing like small groups. If you wanted to do that, you could actually make, like, let's say I had 25 kids in my class and I wanted groups of 5. I could make 5 copies of this doc and call it group 1, group 2, group 3, whatever. And then I can assign the kids which group they're in, and then I could make it so each student can edit the file, and that's how they could be split up. But this is probably the one you're looking for, and in most cases, this is what people want. If I click make a copy for each student, this will automatically generate a copy of the Google Doc for that student. Now, there is one other way you can force a copy of something, but maybe I'll show you that in a second, but I really want to stress this because this is the question I'm getting a lot of. Now, something I'm seeing a lot at the high school level is a lot of their work, the teachers have created things in Microsoft. Now, the problem is you can, of course, upload and store things in Microsoft and Google. This is my Google Drive. If I were you, I would recommend going to this little settings icon, going to settings, and then right here, which is convert uploads, before you upload all of the stuff you're working on, I would make sure this is checked so you convert uploaded files directly to the Google Docs editor format. Because if you add a Word document as an assignment, you're not going to have the option to make a copy for each student. And then it creates a lot of frustration because the kids see it and it's like, edit this. If they're working on a Chromebook, they don't have Microsoft Word. So now we have to be very thoughtful and aware of how we're delivering content and make sure that we have that just digital competency so that we're not making everyone's lives harder by doing this, because let's face it, our lives are harder already because of the situation. So that's how we make a copy for each student. Let me think of what I want to tell you here. In the upper right hand area, if I click this drop down arrow, I can discard it. I didn't even make an assignment title. Let me do that now. Add resources. So I'm going to click this drop down arrow and I'm going to schedule this for later, because let's say I want it to appear on Sunday at 8 p.m. Let's say that's when I've kind of set my standard. So now I've scheduled it for them. So if I go back, this is my Google Classroom, I can go back to the stream and I can see that it's not on here because I didn't post it on here. It's in my drafts right now. So I'm going to go to Classwork again. Remember, this is where we were dividing things up. I can see that this hasn't been assigned because it's a lighter gray, and I can see when it's scheduled for here. If I change my mind, I can click on these little 3 dots and edit it, and I can go ahead and schedule it, or I can delete it, do anything I want with it. Now, remember how I told you have a classroom folder automatically created in your Google Drive? If I click Class Drive folder, it will take me directly there, and I can see those things as well. So let me go back to my classroom. Here are the people in my classroom. Let's say that I have maybe an older sibling showed up in my classroom. They're like a little stowaway and I want to get them out of there. I can click on that person. Under actions, I can click that and I can remove them. I could also mute them, like maybe this girl, Alicia, she just won't stop commenting and I want to mute her. She keeps talking about Real Housewives. This is where I can also invite guardians to join. So if I want them to get the summary for the week, I can click invite guardians and I can type the email of this student's guardian. So Ashley, be careful, your mom is about to get a full summary of what you've been doing in this class, and I don't think she's going to be happy. So let me show you a few other things that I really love that I've seen from other people. So I'm still in Google Classroom, and I want to show you, So this is an example I asked Ashley to send to me because I've seen this a lot. She does hers in docs, and basically every single day the kids get a new doc and it tells them exactly what they have to do for the day. So she tells them when their next Google meeting is, they have to do a check-in, and then she links all of their activities, but she separated it by the day so that way it's not so overwhelming. I know she's a 3rd grade teacher, and this is what 3rd graders maybe are seeing right now. They log on and they see this, which is fine. It's all organized in one place. But can you imagine being a 3rd grader and having all of your work put together and not broken down for you? It would be a lot. So what Ashley did was organize it daily. I think Amanda might have shared one too. Okay, I don't see her, but I know Amanda DeVita does something like this too. She does a daily slide deck. One thing that I saw and I loved was somebody, and I'm going to make a template for you guys too, but it was a Google slide deck for the whole week. So all the activities were linked, hi, welcome to Monday. Let's go through our activities today. And it was laid out for you. So another thing that I recently did, but I looked at the 3rd grade week, the 3rd grade work for next week, the week of the 27th. And I broke it up for them. And if you want a copy of this, that's great. I only did this grade level. It was just for me to look at. And I linked all of the activities in there. So this is an example of laying it out for the week, keeping it organized, especially for the little guys. But honestly, if you've ever taken an online class, even in college or something, it's so overwhelming. So having the expectations laid out is really helpful. Yeah, so those are just a few quick things we can do to kind of manage a digital learning environment in Google Classroom. I'm going to go back to this Classwork tab and just mention a few more things. I know I'm out of time, but I think I can go a little bit over, I hope. I'm going to go back to Classwork. So if I go to that little create box again, I can also add material. So you could add like, hey, here's how you submit work in Google Classroom. I know Jennifer Salvati, who is a teacher at Lakeside Middle School, gave me some great tutorial videos that she recorded on her phone to show students how to submit pictures to their teachers on Google Classroom. And I'll add those to our resource doc as well, but I know the digital learning ambassadors have put together some really great content. So just make sure, especially if you're from MPS, that you're constantly checking the resources available to you. I'm not sure if you've all checked out the home learning hub that we have set up for you, but any minute of any workday, and honestly probably beyond, someone is available to talk to you. Like, here's the actual calendar. There's always somebody available. There's webinars, we've got open office hours, hangouts, and more. And these people are just like you. They're going above and beyond. You can also post your questions and someone will get to them. We have family engagement activities. Joanne Colacurcio put together, and sorry, those are my kids yelling. Please ignore them. Joanne also put together this entire website with remote learning resources. There's a ton already out there, and I think the best place to start is going to be with Google. That's the place to be, organized, and truly we're aiming for just staying connected and engaging. This is such a tough time for all of us. If we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves and for our students, then we've done our job. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, Alicia DeCepola, or you can reach out to any of the digital learning ambassadors. Everyone is here to help. Actually, I told you I wanted to show you one more thing and I forgot. Let me open another tab. So this is really most of the stuff that I figure out is just me Googling things. Google is my ed tech consultant. So I just Googled cool symbols and I can click there. And now I can look at all of these little symbols and I can even add them to my Google Classroom. So let's say I really want the kids to pay attention to week 4. So I copied that one. Now I'm going to edit this. So I'll click these little three stacked dots and edit it. And I can click rename. And now I have this little heart next to it. I know this is not something that has any instructional value to you, but it's truly just an aesthetic thing, but it can help you organize. So back in my drive, remember the folder I showed you at the top? I purposely put that hashtag there to make it at the top of the page. And you can see when I'm not using that, I have all these little symbols. They're look a little number 2, 3, 4, because I like to number the things I use the most and make sure that I have them available to me. So that's something you could use symbols for too, just to make sure the folder you're using most frequently is at the top. You know what? It's 2 or 3, but I think I'm going to keep going. So let me show you one more thing that I forgot of, but I know I'll name drop some more people. So Betty Lou Williams, I believe, does this, and I think it's great. She, at the very beginning of this whole thing, she created just an assignment, and then she just gave a blank doc, and like, this is their journal. And now this is not an assignment that's ever due. So she has this doc, and like, let's say she calls it Home Learning Journal. And maybe she gives a daily prompt, or maybe it's just a place for her and her students to write back and forth to each other. But now she could give every single student a copy of this, and she won't give a due date. And then it can just be a place where, hey, every Friday, check in with me, tell me what learning activity you liked this week, tell me something you learned this week, something you did, what movies are you watching? Because I know we're all watching I hope we're all watching a lot of TV right now. Lord knows I am. So that's another example of just staying connected. And it's not like a graded activity, but it's just something for engagement. That's something to think about. And then I'm assuming we all know this, but like, when we're giving feedback on things, like, for example, I'm going to come back to this Google Doc. We can do things like comment to make sure we're engaging and giving that feedback. So we can be commenting. We can be using Screencastify, which I know I've talked about, again, 7,000 times, but here's 7,001. We can do Screencastify and do a screen recording of our screen and walk kids through something. I also think anytime you show like a video of yourself, it's a really nice opportunity for them to see you and hear from you, because you know that our students hold their educators on a pedestal, and rightfully so. You guys are rocking it. that is a very all over the place half-hour overview of Google Classroom for distance learning. Please reach out to me with any questions or ideas or comments. And if you're an MPS staff member, look for the information about that Google Meet panel that's happening next Wednesday, April 29th. We are going to cover absolutely everything from sharing sound on your computer to breakout rooms to creative ways to host fun, engaging meets and so much more. Thank you for being here. Enjoy your weekend and stay safe.